Welcome back to Epic Movie Home. Today I'll be reviewing a thriller action movie of 2015, titled American Ultra. The movie begins by introducing the protagonist, Mike Howell, who is currently detained in a holding cell. One of the interrogation officers enters into the room to ask Mike some few questions. Mike visualizes serials of flashbacks, containing lucid memories from events that happened during the last couple days. The interrogator places printed images of evidence on the table, such as a bloody spoon, a fry pan, and a destroyed teddy bear. 3 days earlier, Mike was living peacefully at his house in West Virginia with his girlfriend, Phoebe. They are both drug addicts and Mike is madly in love with her. Mike plans a surprise trip to Hawaii for the two of them, where he hopes to propose to her. But strangely, Mike always has a panic attack each time he attempts to leave town, and as a result, they miss their trip to Hawaii. During their drive back home, Mike repeatedly apologized to Phoebe, saying he have no knowledge of why this keeps happening to him. Obviously, Phoebe is disappointed, but she tells him it's not his fault and forgives him. The following day, Mike returns to his workplace where he works as a clerk in a local convenience store. Business is moving at a snail's pace, so Mike spends his leisure perfecting his original comic book, featuring an Apollo ape, who goes on adventures. While outside taking a smoke, it's then revealed that the CIA has been secretly keeping eyes on him. Mike was previously part of a classified operation called the Ultra program. But Mike has no memory of the program. At the CIA headquarters, Victoria Lassiter is seen going through some files in her office. Out of the blue, she receives a phone call. On the other side of the line, a contorted voice informs her that the Ultra program tough guy is now active. He made it known to Lassiter that Mike is their target, and he will be eliminated in the next hour. Agent Lassiter was against the murder operation but was warned not to interfere. Lassiter went to meet a colleague, Andrian Yates, and tells him they are to protect their former assets and not to kill them. But Yates responds saying Mike is a potential threat and his persistent moves to leave town is considered a security breach. Back at West Virginia, Mike and Phoebe are spending the night together outside, smoking joints and sharing ideas for Mike's comic book. They parked at one of their favorite park spot and they noticed a tow truck retrieving a car that has recently crashed into a tree. A very high Mike begins speak about the car and the tree. He describes the car as an object that is constantly moving and has the ability to go where it wants. While the tree, on the other hand, is stationary and haven't left that very spot till this night. He breaks down and begins to cry, while metaphorically describing himself as the tree and Phoebe as the car, implying he's the one holding her back in life. She tries to comfort him by telling him that's not the case, and the two later returned home to sleep. The next day, Mike lies to Phoebe and tells her he has to go to work early. Instead, Mike went to meet a buddy, Rose, to illegally buy a box of fireworks. Although their trip to Hawaii doesn't work out, Mike still plans on proposing to Phoebe, and he wants to use the fireworks to put up an amazing show for her. Later that evening, Agent Lassiter arrives at the convenience store to warn Mike about the danger ahead. She begins speaking in codes, informing Mike that Mandelbrot set is in motion, Echo Choir has been breached and they are fielding the ball. Mike is certainly confused, and he asked her if she is okay. Victoria becomes irritated, which turns into concern for Mike. The code she's speaking is supposed to activate his hidden abilities, but Mike is showing no signs of understanding. After multiple attempts with no success, Agent Lassiter apologizes to Mike and left. Mike heats up the plate of food she left behind and went outside to eat. While outside, he saw notices to men who appears to be messing with his car. He tells them to get away from his car, but they starts approaching him with knives. It seems that the activation code that Agent Lassiter recites to Mike have successfully been activated. His eyes lit up, and he quickly engaged in a combat with the men. He disfigured their arm, and using the spoon in his hand, he stabs one of the men on the neck before shooting them dead with their own gun. Mike was in shock about his sudden powers, and quickly calls Phoebe while she's at work, explaining what happened to her. She rushes down over and was shocked after finding the two men corpse on the ground. She asked Mike while the men attacked him, but he told her he had no clue about it. Still thinking about a way out, the city's cops arrives and both were arrested. Yates was informed that the team have lost the two assets assigned to eliminate Mike, and he quickly realized that Lassiter has activated. Yates orders his men to lock down the town using all means possible, and he assigns two new assets, Agent Crane and Laffer, to clear off Mike and his girlfriend at the police station. Inside the cell, Phoebe demands Mike to go through what really happened. Mike tells her about the woman that came to visit him at the store, and he perfectly recites the codes the woman said to him. The head sheriff moves both of them to the interrogation center to ask them some few questions. But suddenly the power cut off and an alarm begins buzzing throughout the building. Agent Crane kicks the front door open, and begins spraying bullets on the officers, while Agent Laffer got in through the back door to kill Mike. However, Mike's ultra powers activated, and he's able to defeat Laffer in a hand-to-hand combat. Using a handcuffs as brass knuckles, he punches Laffer several times on the face and locked him inside one of the cells, before escaping. Meanwhile, Agent Crane spots Mike and Phoebe escaping through the security camera. She chases after them and throws a grenade at Mike, but before the bomb will explode, Mike quickly throws it back to her before it explodes. The explosion destroys the building, and Mike walks over Crane to finish her off. At the same time, Agent Lassiter wants to leave town but realizes that it's on lockdown by some men in decoy military wares. She calls Yates, who informed her that they've made up a false story about a disease outbreak, to make sure no one escapes from the town, including her. After hanging up the phone, Lassiter comes across the damaged station and spots Agent Crane corpse outside. She contacts a colleague, Petey, and tells him that Yates is confining her, and he's planning on eliminating her. She gives Petey the coordinates to an open field, and demands him to airdrop her weapons and files on Yates' assets. Petey agrees reluctantly and sends her a package, containing firearms and files on Agent Crane and Laffer. After reviewing the files, Lassiter realizes that Yates is using patients from the psychiatric, as part of his program. She makes another call to Petey to get him to stop this, but Petey tells her he can't be able to do that. Yates got to know about what happened, and threatened to kill Petey for granting Lassiter requests. Elsewhere, Yates' team brought him to a truck full of sleeper agents, including Laffer, who managed to survive the explosion at the station. Yates decides to use him and few others, to chase after Mike. Since Mike's car was destroyed from the explosion, they escaped using Phoebe's car instead, and went to Rose's house for refuge. Rose finds them outside, and is suspicious when he sees them, because according to the news, Mike and Lassiter are the brain and source behind the disease outbreak. It's stated that they contracts the highly contagious disease from monkeys, and informs everyone to keep distance from them. Mike tries to explain for himself, but Rose locks him and Phoebe in the basement. While Rose and a friend are deciding on what to do, dozens of sleeper agents sneaks inside his compound, releasing tear gas throughout the vents of the house. While another agent breaks inside the house, killing Rose and his friend. Down at the basement, Mike and Phoebe tries escaping through the ceiling, but were stopped by one of the agents, who aims at Mike to kill him. However, Mike knocks the agent out with a kettle, while Phoebe quickly takes the respirator. The two quickly rushes outside the house, and Phoebe shoots the agent responsible for hosing the gas through the vents. She retrieved an antidote from his body, and injects it into Mike. He feels sleepy, but Phoebe tells him the gas he inhaled is a dangerous one, and he will die if he sleeps away. Mike slowly begins to lose his conscience, and starts to see flashes of memories of his time spent with Phoebe, including the ones he doesn't remember living. For a short moment, Mike relives his last interview with the CIA, and the lady on the other side turns out to be Phoebe. Mike came back to his conscience and quickly pushes Phoebe away. He asks Phoebe how she knew specifically what gas was used. Hesitant to reply, Phoebe explains she worked for the CIA, and was the agent assigned as Mike's handler, over 5 years ago. Mike asks if she was ever even his girlfriend, and Phoebe desperately tries to explain, but Mike feels betrayed, and runs away to her car. Phoebe follows Mike inside of the car and begs him to give her a chance to explain. While the two were into an argument, the car was knocked over by a SUV driven by Laffer. He retrieves Phoebe from the car, and is instructed by Yates to bring her back alive. After that, Laffer begins to pour gasoline all over the car, and drops a lighter onto the car, then went to meet Phoebe trying to wake her up. While being distracted, Lassiter shows up, and helps Mike out of the car before it explodes. Laffer took Phoebe back to their camp, and she's shocked to find out that Yates is in charge of the operation. Yates is amused that she questioned his authorization, when she herself never returns for her debrief, and chose to date her assignment instead. He tells her that her pathetic boyfriend was burnt alive, and he's placing her under arrest for insubordination. Meanwhile, Lassiter takes Mike somewhere safe, and asks him if he remembers her. Mike is confused and demands more details about her. She starts calmly explaining his past. She tells him that they first met when he was 18. At that time, she was recruiting people for a program called Wiseman. Their selection of recruits were mainly third-strike misdemeanor offenders, and they offered them a second chance of survival working through the CIA as experimental elements. She tells Mike that out of all of her subjects, he was the only one proficient. However, the experiment was causing him to go insane, so they shut down the operation, and wiped out his memory. In order to protect him, they put him through an extensive psychiatric tests, creating fake phobias in his head, such as leaving town. A man spots two of them outside, and reports it to the local authorities, which later gets to Yates and his men. Mike and Lassiter returns back to his house, where Mike claims he'd rather die in stone than to fight. At the same time, Yates orders Petey to send out a drone strike to blow up Mike's home. Petey was nervous but agrees reluctantly. Back at Mike's house, Lassiter keep watch the home, while Mike gets high. She tells Mike that Phoebe always have faith in him, and that she was only supposed to get him settled into the town, before returning back to the CIA. Few minutes later, a squad of agents invaded the house to confirm Mike's location. This led to a shootout, but Lassiter uses a silencer in form of a teddy bear, to kill one of the agents. Despite still having his men at the location, Yates demands that the drone fires anyway. Petey smashes the table in anguish, and refuses to be responsible for Lassiter's death. In the end, he decides to disobey Yates' orders, and cancels the airstrike. He starts panicking, knowing he will be killed as a result of his actions. He makes a phone call to Raymond Kruger, the head of the CIA operations. Back at the house, Mike is pinned down in the kitchen, but notices a fry pan falls in front of him. His instinct activated, and he throws the pan in the air, reversing a bullet off of it and killing one of the soldiers assigned to kill him. Yates calls Lassiter's phone, but Mike answers. He tells Mike to meet him at the local supermarket, but Mike demands to speak with Phoebe. She tells him that she's sorry for everything that happened, and claims she's the tree and that he's the car, referring back to the conversation that they had before. She tells him he doesn't owe her anything, but Yates ends the call before she could finish. Mike then decides he's going to the supermarket, and save his girlfriend. Using the fireworks he bought from Rose, he takes out all the guards at the front, and drives through the walls of the supermarket. He then proceeds to engage in a fight with all of the agents, killing them with whatever object he gets his hands on. While on his rampage, Phoebe manages to secretly snatch a paper tape while everyone is distracted. Mike throws a firework to create a smoke screen, and using a sledgehammer to hit the remaining agents. He emerges through the smoke, and Yates instructs Laffer to finish him, while he takes Phoebe with him. Yates takes Phoebe to another room, and Phoebe tells Yates that her pathetic boyfriend is going to finish him. Using the paper tape she took earlier, she uncuffs herself, and punches Yates on the face. Lassiter then sneaks up from behind, and nearly strangled him to death with a cable. However, Kruger arrives and orders her to stop, and instructed the two of them to come with him. By then, Mike have overpowered Laffer and steals Laffer's gun, holding him at gunpoint. Laffer realizes it's over, and apologizes to Mike, saying that they've messed up with his brain, and he can't control what he does. Mike have empathy for the mentally ill man, and decides to let him live. Mike and Phoebe reunites, and they walked outside to meet a squad of the police force and several armed troopers, aiming their rifles at them. Mike uses the opportunity to propose to Phoebe. She says yes, but the moment is cut short when both of them are tased by the officers. Sometime later, Kruger ties up Yates and Lassiter, and takes them into the woods. He reminds them that there will be consequences for their actions, and they are responsible for the deaths of many people. Yates tries to defend himself, and placed all the blame on Lassiter, but Kruger reminds him that he initiated this operation without any authorization, and shoots him twice in the chest. Kruger then let it known to Lassiter that he was the one who calls her anonymously. He claims it was out of courtesy, and he now regrets ever doing so. He tells her that Mike will still be executed, but she convinces him that he's still a very valuable asset, who manages to single-handedly takes out 17 tough agents. The scene then cuts back to the holding cell from the beginning of the movie, and the interrogator refers to Mike as Agent Howell. Several months later, Mike and Phoebe are in Philippines, and are having a romantic time together. Mike leaves Phoebe at the front desk, and she looks through into a hidden camera, where Agent Lassiter and Petey are watching them. Mike gets into an elevator and is taken by two Mandarin gangsters, as planned by Lassiter. The leader of the group threatens and taunts Mike, but Mike quickly looks around for what he can get his hands on, and springs into action. The movie comes to a stop, displaying their fight in a cartoon form drawn in Mike's comic book. Thanks so much for watching. Do well to click on one of the videos at your screen now, and don't forget to subscribe if you enjoy the video.